Coming up next on the Social Hour, Facebook wants teens to be heard. They're lifting privacy restrictions, and you can bet that the parents are mad. Plus, Twitter is trying to change how they use DMs. What does it all mean? And is there anything more cool than the eye cuddle? We'll discuss in great detail all that and more next.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Audio bandwidth provided by the new Winamp for Android, featuring wireless sync and one-click iTunes import. Now with free daily music downloads and full-length CD listening parties. Download it for free at winamp.com/Android. Bandwidth for the Social Hour is brought to you by CashFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is the Social Hour with Sarah Lane and guest host Ayaz Akhtar, episode 133, recorded Friday, October 18th, 2013. This episode of the Social Hour is brought to you by lynda.com. Learn what you want when you want with access to over 2,000 high-quality online courses and training videos, all for one low monthly price. To try it free for 7 days, visit lynda.com/social hour. That's LYNDA.com/social hour. And by Shutterstock.com. With over 1 million high-quality video clips, Shutterstock helps you take your creative projects to the next level. For 25% off your new account, go to Shutterstock.com and use the offer code SOCIALHOUR1013. And by Social Media Solutions from SAP. If you're a social media manager at a large enterprise, gain insight and engage in social media with Social Media Solutions from SAP to improve your customer service and support experience. Take a guided tour at sap.com/twit. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Social Hour from Twit World Headquarters in Petaluma, California. I'm Sarah Lane, and this is the part of the show where I'd usually say, well, who's up in Toronto this week? And Amber would say, me, Sarah, and she'd tell me all about the weather. But Amber's not feeling very good. She's under the weather today. So we're going to give her a day off, let her rest up a little bit. And thankfully, I have Ayaz Akhtar in studio with me here at the headquarters to talk social for
I can tell you how it is in Petaluma if you want to know.
I'd love to know. I haven't been outside today since 8.
It's nice outside.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh.
It's a lot like when you go outside later, it's nice.
It's going to be good?
It's going to be a good day.
And we're in the same time zone, so there's just a lot of synergy.
There's a lot of lag, though. This is very far apart.
Right.
You know? I might Skype out.
Luckily, I have this in my ear so I can hear you loud and clear.
Good, good.
Yeah, if you need to get on Skype just to make a better connection, that's
Sure, I will do that
cool.
from here. It'll be great.
Good. Well, thanks for joining me. A little bit late notice, but I really appreciate it. So, of course, this is the show where we talk about social stuff for an hour. Thanks to everybody who's joining us live, everybody who's watching us on demand. Love you all. Let's start, I guess, we've got quite a bit of social news. So this is not necessarily the top story, but we might as well start with it. The idea that Twitter wants to make DMs kind of a more interesting product. There's a few little parts to this story, and it has unraveled quite quickly. Started with Twitter opening up the idea of if you follow me on Twitter, but for some reason I don't follow you, you can't direct message me. It would be some sort of an invasion of my privacy settings. If we both follow each other, we can DM each other. And if I followed you, but you don't follow me, I can't DM you. That's the way that it's always worked. I think for the most part, people understand how that works. Twitter said, well, it's still going to be like that by default, but we're going to go ahead and, if you go into your settings, allow you to uncheck or check.
You have to check it, yeah.
You check the option to let anybody DM you, whether you follow them or not. We talked about this on TNT a little bit earlier in the week and sort of kicked around, well, what's good and bad about this whole thing? I mean, I think what's bad about it is you're going to get a lot of DM spam, because if a brand can DM you and you're not following the brand, that's unhelpful. And it kind of dilutes the experience of getting a DM. Right now, there's only, one of 300 people that I follow on Twitter that have the ability to private message me. And I usually look forward to that stuff because it's just for me.
That's how I look at it too. Anytime I get a DM, I'm all excited. I'm like, okay, this is one of 120 people or something. It's really a small group of people I follow.
Yeah.
And to allow that to be opened up, at least Twitter made it opt-in, and I think it's slowly rolling out to everybody else. So if you don't see it in your settings yet, it should show up eventually. That kind of opens it up kind of like text messaging. So if somebody gets your your ID or they get your phone number, they can text you. And I've gotten enough spam from texts. Like, I don't know why I keep getting texts from Calvin Klein, which is nice. It's nice. It's nice that they're having sales and things, but I don't need to get them in my phone.
Oh gosh. Oh, that'd bug the crap out of me.
Yeah, I like Calvin Klein stuff though, so I'm not really. I guess I'm not
enough
irritated.
to get text messages.
Well, I would rather not get them.
Yeah.
But I don't know why I'm getting them either. But that's the problem with the DM thing. If you open it up.
Whenever I get one of those, I always reply stop. I don't know if it works.
I should try that.
Sometimes I don't get any more, and so I'm like, I think I unlocked the code.
It's a magic thing. Yeah, but the DMs being opened up could be the same kind of thing, but at least you could turn it off.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, this is not something that you have to deal with. And actually, as a little experiment, because I knew that we were going to talk about it on another show earlier this week, I went ahead and turned on DMs from anybody that anybody who wants to DM me. And until we talked about it on TNT, and then people started doing it because I was basically egging them on, I never got any. So it wasn't as if the floodgates of spam opened, in at least the first 5 hours of me having that option on. Although I toggled it back off. But that was just sort of the beginning. We all talked about, well, okay, what does it mean? What is Twitter getting at here? What are they looking to achieve by having unsolicited DMs being able to be sent? Well, then it turned out that Twitter had to start stripping out a bunch of domains because spammers were targeting people who had DMs open.
Those are the worst. Even just the @reply ones where they found that one keyword,
right? Exactly.
Where you wrote like iPad or something, and then it's like free iPad. Here's the thing. Here's a link. Or there's just like @Aya's link, and you're like, what? It's spam.
Exactly. But I mean, I noticed that a couple of my friends were complaining, why are URLs being stripped out in DMs? And then someone from Twitter said, we're trying to, it's cutting down on spam. And he said, but I was linking to like a Vimeo video that I did. I mean, how is that domain blocked? That doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So definitely not working seamlessly. And, it's hard to say how much opening the floodgates of DM would help with that. Then we've got an All Things D article that Twitter plans to revamp its whole DM private messaging product in general. Sources that are anonymous, but apparently there are 3 of them, said, yeah, that's something that they're working on. We don't exactly know what it's going to look like, but it could possibly be its own standalone app. So you've got the Twitter, and then you've got the messaging app. I know, you're kind of making a face like, I don't know, who needs it? But yeah, but I mean, that's worked pretty well for Facebook. Not that Facebook and Twitter are exactly the same product, but I think of Facebook as the entire Facebook experience, but it's also a really easy way to message somebody, and I prefer the messaging app because it's just stripped out of all the other stuff.
But if you're using the messaging app, you can still go to the Facebook app to get those messages if you wanted them as well, right?
Correct.
Like it kind of duplicates functionality, but it also has a stripped down version of Messenger. I think the report was talking about a standalone product, and I don't know if it would work the same way as Facebook, where you could have them both accessible in the let's say DM app versus the Twitter app, because if it gets split out like Twitter Music did, which I downloaded and then never used. This is kind of that weird zone of how are they going to make it all work together. And if they want Twitter to be all public, it does make sense for DMs to be pushed aside, but that seems, DMs have not been that important to Twitter, it looks like, because they pushed it so far down. If you go to the website, it's really hard to find. Go to the Me tab, and then you go into look at your little profile, and there's a little envelope, and if it's blue, there you go. Now you know you have a DM, but it used to be way up there.
Yeah, it's been buried, and now it's almost as if Twitter's like, what is a part of our experience that we've de-emphasized or that we're not using to its fullest potential? Some folks have said, well, this is going to turn into some sort of an advertising thing, because if you're following a brand, then you may get some targeted promoted tweets, right? Or you've got promoted posts that hang out at the top of your stream if you're using one of the official Twitter products. What if you start getting DMs from brands that you follow with specials, that sort of thing? That would be better than getting DMs from brands that you don't follow, certainly, but it's all kind of starts to make sense, because seeing something in the general Twitter stream is easily lost. Once you scroll past it, you may never go back. But a DM is just waiting there for you. Sarah, message for you. It's like email.
Yeah, but if they're not careful, then if this is all speculation, obviously. So if they do put ads into your DMs, then you might start not paying attention to DMs.
Exactly.
So it has to be a special kind of rate to be doing this if you can opt in or out. But I mean, it seems like a lot of the fears coming from Twitter going public soon. How are they going to make money? They need to make more money, and everyone's screaming ads. We put ads in there, of course they'll make money, and then you could ruin the experience. It's a real fine line. We've seen Facebook try it. How do you have ads that are relevant, that people want to click, and then not annoy the user base? Because annoying the user base, that would be death for Twitter. Because if they don't have the millions and millions of eyeballs, why would advertisers want to pay them anything?
Well, that actually goes quite well into our next story. Speaking of Facebook, there's just sort of a mind-boggling number that got thrown out this week. A study by an agency called Nanigans, which is one of the biggest buyers of Facebook ads, so they pay attention to Facebook ads, composed a study looking at more than 200 billion ads on Facebook. And what the information that they got from it, and they say they don't exactly know why this is, but mobile ads via the iPhone generate 1,790% more return on investment than ads on Android. And that ads on Android perform so poorly that it actually costs more to have ads on Android than what they get back out of it. Now, of course, this is just ads that you see on Facebook. We're not talking about iOS versus Android. So Android people, this is certainly not a knock on you, but it is extremely curious as to what is going on here. It's not as if the Android people don't have access to the Facebook mobile app. They certainly do.
Yeah, the apps are pretty much the same. I was testing them out side by side.
Yeah.
I don't see a huge difference in the presentation of ads on Facebook, on Android versus Facebook on iPad anyway. I wasn't using a smaller iDevice. So I'm just kind of curious, is there something special about the iOS experience that says, click me? I don't know why people are tapping these ads on iOS so much more.
Yeah.
That was 1,790%. What was that number?
1790. I mean, that's percentage. That's a ridiculous percentage.
I just don't know
if you're comparing the two.
How does Facebook change that? I mean, they would want parity, of course, right? This is
one would think.
If even if it was 2-to-1, that'd be scary. This is like almost 20 times different.
Yeah, and what's weird is that it doesn't bode well, considering that Facebook has actually put a lot of stock in Android over the last year. You know, they've been encouraging employees to have Android phones and to be testing the products on Android, because they know so many people around the world are accessing Facebook via Android all the time. Why is it that as an advertiser, if you've got an ad that goes through Facebook that you're wanting people to view via Android, and you're not even getting what you put into it, which is what this study is suggesting is happening, why would you continue to advertise? That's a problem for Facebook.
Yeah, I was looking into this story. I was thinking about how Facebook does have a launcher, their Facebook Home launcher, for a bunch of Android phones. You can put that on there. You can have all these chat heads and things. And there was all this fear a long time ago as well that you'd have ads on your launcher itself, because Facebook would be selling that. That might be something they might want to think about doing if they want people to click on it. But then again, you don't, like I was saying with the Twitter story, you don't want to alienate that user base, especially if they're going through the effort of putting a Facebook launcher on their device. There's really nothing inherently different about the app, so I'm not sure why on earth this difference is so great.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you. If anybody has any words of wisdom, do email us, thesocialhour@twit.tv, because a bunch of us have been talking about it, and it's like, that's fascinating stuff. You know, it would be, if it was sort of like known that all Android phones were super low cost, and you could kind of make the correlation that, well, there's probably not a lot of disposable income, so why click on an ad for something that you know you're not going to buy? But that's not the case. Not with all Android phones, anyway.
Yeah, I mean
there's
there are super phones out there. It's the S4,
Absolutely.
the HTC One. You'd think they,
which are not only feature rich, but not cheap.
Wait a minute. There was an old story about how iPhone and iPad glass was more responsive than like any other device out there. Maybe these people are trying to click on their Android devices and they're being frustrated. Then they quit the entire process while the iDevices are capable of handling the touch.
Ah, yes.
A mechanical issue.
Maybe a lot of these clicks on ads are simply mistakes, and the glass is too responsive.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
That's my theory right now.
Maybe it's like me when I'm sort of, at night, I'm like, oh, wait, clicked on an ad.
More people fall asleep with their iOS devices than not. That is how they're clicking on Facebook ads. There we
We've cracked
go.
the code.
There it is.
More stuff coming to the Facebook mobile experience. On the iOS app, actually, gotten some enhancements that make it act more like the desktop experience than ever before. So, for example, starting yesterday, you can edit posts and comments after publishing via the iOS app. That's very helpful. I actually stopped updating from the app for this reason, because there'd be a couple times where maybe I would forget to set it as public, or I'd make a typo and then I'd have to be like, now I have to get my laptop out, so I can edit the whole thing. Or have you ever had that happen?
Yes, there are all kinds of things on the Facebook apps that I can't do unless I go to to Chrome, select desktop version, and then do this other dance.
Exactly.
And it drives me nuts, which is one of the reasons why I do this. I won't use the apps for certain things.
And I think Facebook has probably gotten enough of that feedback and realizes that we really shouldn't have to depend on a desktop experience to have the full features. So you can add posts and comments after publishing. You can also add photos as comments. That's fairly new on the desktop experience as well for Facebook, but they want you to be able to do that via an app. And that actually makes sense. Most of my photos are on my iPhone these days. It's not like I've got a treasure trove of stuff on any of my, my desktop or my laptops anyway. So that makes a lot more sense. And then apparently trending topics on Facebook, which is a new feature as well that lets you know what people are talking about. It's very similar to trending topics on Twitter, are also being bundled into this latest iOS release. So go ahead and update.
Trending topics, for me, doesn't make a lot of sense on Facebook. Facebook's this social place. I'm talking to my friends. Things are going on there. Versus looking at Twitter and doing a hashtag search and finding out what's going on throughout that day. It's not like I'm on Facebook looking for content.
Yeah.
On Twitter, though, it's about discovery at times. What's going on either in the world or what's going on in this area. But I never think of Facebook first to be what's going on in the world? It's no, here are some pictures of puppies.
Yeah, I've been thinking so much about, Amber and I talk about this a lot, it's why is it that Facebook isn't a better news source? Why is it that Twitter seems to just work so much better for so many of us? And I think it's not just that Facebook, so the people I'm connected to on Facebook have a lot more to do with my history, a lot more high school friends, childhood friends, people that I may have met at a dinner party, that type of a thing. But in a way, it's why don't I just follow all of the people who work for publications that I follow on Facebook? And it's Facebook just is so much more of a front-facing tool for all of your personal life. I mean, it really is so personal that it doesn't make sense to use it in that way, at least for me.
The other thing is, I think when you do those hashtag searches on Twitter, you can go through a lot of content really fast. Mm-hmm. And if you were doing trending topics on Facebook, you could have a little something that's about the size of a tweet, or it could be this manifesto, because there's no character. Well, there's a character limit, but it's not anything near Twitter's. So if you're looking at all of this stuff, you might just get bored of it, because it's not going to be the same. I've read 30 tweets in one sitting versus 2 Facebook posts, which go on forever.
Right. Well, and it's on Twitter, if I'm following somebody who works for Wired, I'm not even thinking of anybody in particular. It's they're maybe posting links to stuff that they've written or social commentary about whatever. And it's kind of well, who is this person? You go to their bio, they got a little profile picture, maybe a little cover photo, and that's sort of it. On Facebook, it's then I can look through this wedding that they went to and one of their photo albums 3 years ago, and it's too much information. And then you get into that weird Facebook deep dive, and then you come up for air 4 hours later and you're I've been stalking this writer at Wired for a while. I know a lot about his life all of a sudden. That didn't really happen. This is a hypothetical.
Right, it wasn't Wired. It
scenario.
was a different publication.
It was
It was Fortune.
It was BuzzFeed. But yeah, I've been trying to figure out what it is that's so different between the two, and I think that's kind of it.
So the idea of you can get to know somebody on Facebook versus Twitter, where you just kind of see their thoughts. It's not exactly the same.
It's whatever you're putting out, and then Facebook is going through somebody's attic. So, for better or for worse, anyway. All right, let's move on to some not really great news for closed social network Path. Of course, the social network where you have 150 friends and you're able to tell your deepest, darkest secrets, or not really secrets, but stuff that you just don't want to be public because it's all about sharing with people who are very close to you. They've laid off 20% of their staff. It's a pretty small company, so that amounts to about, I think, 13 positions. But still, for a company that's supposedly on the up and up, they they do quote 20 million active users, at least at last count, you have to wonder, well, what's going on there? How active are those 20 million people? Can't be that active, right? Or they wouldn't be laying off a fairly big chunk of the people who work there.
I think it'd be active, just not buying stickers and things like that. I know when there was an update to Path on iOS and I saw that little shop icon pop up, I clicked it and it makes a noise, which I thought was actually kind of irritating. Then you had, oh, you could buy stickers. And maybe I just don't get stickers. I know they're on Facebook. I know there are emojis that are everywhere. There are all these like crazy, silly things that people buy. I just never think about, you know what's going to help me be social? I need this sticker of a raccoon with a cape made out of cheese. I don't quite understand why this is such a big deal.
Yeah.
And I think that's why Path might have to have less staff, because they don't, stickers I don't think is the wave of the future for a company that wants to be a social network that's closed, it's very specific, because it's up against Twitter, Facebook, Google+, Pinterest. It's facing the world. Stickers are going to save you?
Yeah, and they've got premium accounts now too. But the thing is that premium accounts, let's say it's, what is it? It's like $5 for several months if I were to buy through iOS.
Is that the one that lets you share with multiple like circles? Is that what the premium one was on Path? I keep mixing up what's their premium thing.
No, I don't even think that's it. I think it's more of like you get exclusive access to new sticker packs and photo filters. Not only before everybody, but you know that subscription model covers all of this stuff. The problem with Path is that, well, I've got all sorts of problems with Path, but that's like my specific experience, is that, okay, so I max out on 150 friends, and then it kind of turns into this thing where if somebody wants to become my friend, then I'm sort of like, well, okay, well, who do I drop? Because it has to be this finite number. And then once you've kind of gotten to that point, or maybe you only have 70, or maybe you have 30, it doesn't even really matter, but there is a finite number where the experience kind of shuts off on you. So you're not really incentivized to keep growing the network. And then you kind of talk to these people, and they're not even necessarily great friends. And the sticker thing is a little bit of a, I mean, I'd show you guys all this stuff if anyone's like, what do the stickers look like? But I feel like I can't show you my Path because it's supposed to be a closed network. They're trendy. You know, I mean, I bought some sticker packs. I bought like 5 of them. I probably spent, what, $12 on the whole thing. And now I've got them and I can use them as comments. But it's like this thing where it was supposed to be like, well, you know, teens in Japan and in certain Asian market, stickers are huge. We got to start like, let's go nuts. Let's go, you know, nuclear with the whole sticker pack thing. But even the people who we all thought it was really funny at first, it's really fallen off.
That's not necessarily like a revenue that's going to continue for years and years and years. But I was looking at the premium thing, $15 a year, unlimited free sticker packs, unlimited free camera filters because they charge for some filters, and Flickr's got tons of filters for free, so that might be another issue they're going against. Early access to shop items, and it does say support an ad-free network, which suggests at some point if they had ads, and then there was a premium model where you don't have ads, that might make more sense. Or they start charging for the application itself. But that seems like that could shoot them in the foot as well. They're in a really tenuous position because they have this giant user base that has been used to getting all of these services for free. When you start taking away things from them or saying, hey, by the way, you're going to have less features now, and we're going to charge you, you could get a really annoyed Path user base, and then they're not using Path, and what's going to happen to Path then?
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. I feel like there's a lot of, there seems to be a lot of sort of finger pointing, at least in some of the publications I read, that's targeted at Path specifically. It's like there seem to be people saying like, you see, this is a bad business model. This is stupid. More so than other networks. It's almost as if there's, remember the social network Color? They got all that money, and it was like everyone kind of wanted them to fail, and then they did. Well,
there was this big question of what it was.
Right.
That was another thing. And then it pivoted, and then I didn't know what it was again, which was fine.
Right.
But Path started off with like, 30? It was 30 friends, right? It was something tiny.
It was 50.
50? So it was tiny.
Yes.
This was the idea was to have a small social network, and I think I still think that's a viable idea, because otherwise, people say this all the time about Facebook, you can have groups, but you don't want to curate these things or start over. Path gave a lot of people a fresh start. This idea of like, instead of following all your high school friends on Facebook, you can have this really closed group. I don't know why people would pick on it in particular, other than the fact that it's one of these. It was a startup for a while. It's like, oh wow, what are they going to do? How are they going to compete? And then you have things like Instagram being bought by Facebook. You think, is path long for the world as an independent if some other giant company could pick them up?
Yeah. Well, we got more bad news for Google+. Can't say I'm surprised about this one. If you read an annual report released by Shareaholic that looks at just kind of like sharing buttons and what gets the most traction around the web. Makers of social sharing buttons and widgets that the company says are used by about 200,000 publishers, so they've got a pretty broad range. The report covers September of 2012 through September of 2013, so give or take pretty much the last year. Google+, says Shareaholic, has driven less than 0.1% of all referral traffic to its publishers over the past year. You might say, oh, well, what does that mean? They say LinkedIn is a little higher than Google+ over the past year, but it's still less than 0.1% of overall referrals. So who's up top? Well, that's Facebook by a wide margin. Facebook, then Pinterest, then Twitter. Facebook's 13-month average was 8.11% of all referrals, pretty high. Pinterest was 3.24%. Twitter was 1.17%. But if you say, okay, well, you might not compare Google+ to LinkedIn. You might not even really compare any of these to Pinterest. But I would compare Google+ to Facebook as far as where I share and having people that I'm connected to in that social network sense.
Yeah, I don't think you'd compare LinkedIn to Google+. It's so much the idea that LinkedIn, which is not thought of as something to refer traffic, that's even beating Google+, which should be in the neighborhood of Facebook.
Exactly. And that's actually one of the reasons that I feel like I've lost the incentive to post to Google+ regularly. It's not because I don't like the product. It's just because I don't really I feel like there are all these the numbers of people who I'm supposedly connected to there, and they don't really exist, or they're not using the product.
Yeah, the Google+ and Facebook, I've been asked by a friend of mine to give Plus another chance. I'm not big on that. I'm not on Plus that often. I'll go in there to manage communities and things, but personally, I don't share a whole lot of things other than on Twitter. This idea about getting referrals, though. Facebook, I just think with its sheer volume of people on it, that's going to have a high referral rate. Twitter makes sense too because you have a limited amount of content, so you have to click through most of the times, I'd imagine, unless they have those built-in cards. But if you want to see something like Instagram, right, you have to click a link and that'll take you out. That's a referral right there. But Google+, it has a decent user base. And is it about the presentation? Are you seeing too much that you don't need to click through? That doesn't seem like that'd be accurate either, because Facebook shows you a lot too. So what's going on there?
I don't know. I really don't. I don't know why I don't want to use it, and I certainly don't know why, for people who use it regularly, why, and they have big followings, and they're, So I posted a Petopia. Oh, that's loose.
Does that count as a referral there? So you have a YouTube video, right?
Yeah.
If somebody clicked that and played it, that's going to play right there in place. Does that count as a referral to YouTube or not?
Yes. Well, that's a good question.
Because you're never leaving the site.
That's a good question because you're not clicking on a link. Although I have a link in the I don't know.
I'm just wondering, that's
a good question.
Is there too much functionality here where that you don't have to leave, or are you having so many conversations going on right there because the content that's posted? That's one of the things I found most useful about Google+ when I'm on there. Is that you have real in-depth conversations with people, as opposed to the silly Twitter things, or Facebook can have, again, my old high school friends chiming in, which they can be pretty intelligent, but there's something about Google+ that makes you have a conversation there.
Yeah.
So you might not want to go, I want to go somewhere else. Like here's our Google+ community for know-how, and we've got lots of people have different ideas. That one's got 3 comments, a couple of them got 2 comments. There was a whole thread at one point where people were discussing how to do DNS settings. It looked like an old forum post. It was really great. But there's no reason to leave here.
Right, the conversation is there.
Yeah.
It's not so much a promotional thing to go somewhere else.
Right.
Well, that's part of it too. It's certainly user behavior. It just doesn't, it can be discouraging for someone who's like, Google Plus is my place. That's where I want to, you know, have all the interaction, and when I've got something cool to share, I want people to click on it. It's not surprising that Twitter is so far below Facebook as well. I mean, I've learned over time that a few of my friends will click on links that I share on Twitter, even though it, you know, I've got a lot of people who follow me. It's like, just most people don't, you know, they're hanging out on the network. For some reason, Facebook, people are delighted to click out of that.
Twitter's hard though, because you have this small ability to give a caption or some kind of incentive to click a link. So unless you come up with like the best, it's not link bait, but clickbait, why are they going to click what you're writing? Because I know anytime I do a new podcast with my friends, Jonathan Strickland and Eric Sandine, I have to explain what the episode is about in this tiny space.
Yeah.
And to get somebody to click through to that, it's like, how do I make it compelling? Because the URL is long enough that it's eating up too much. Got to go to a shortener, and maybe then it's still not enough.
Yeah. All right, well, quick reminder for all of you watching us live, we do record the Social Hour live on Fridays, 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific, until the end of the year, and then we get a new time slot on Thursday at 11 a.m. Pacific, or 2 p.m. Eastern, but don't worry about that for a few months. Just enjoy us while you can on Friday afternoons. Of course, our website is twit.tv/TSH. And once you know that, you almost don't really have to care too much about when we record live, because all of our episodes live in perpetuity there. Last week, Amber and I had Alexis Ohanian, co-founder of Reddit, founder of Breadpig, and all-around insanely fun social guy as our guest. If you missed that interview, you really should go check it out, because he's awesome. He's been on our show a couple times before, and we love, love, love him. Also, Brian was showing you some different audio and video feeds, so if you're like, you know what, I love you guys, but I don't really want to think about when your time slot is, go ahead and maybe download the audio feed, and you can listen to us on your commute once a week, or when you're out for a lovely stroll on the way to the farmer's market. I'm just describing what I'm going to do tomorrow morning when I'm listening to the Social Hour. All right, let's move on to thank one of our sponsors, one of three. Our first sponsor is lynda.com. We love lynda.com. If you haven't heard of them, it's lynda.com. It's an online learning company that can help you, me, anybody who's interested in learning creative stuff online, software, business skills, anything that you would like to achieve in your personal or professional goals. So actually, a couple days ago, a friend of mine was over at my house, and he was trying to get some feedback of mine on a video that he was editing together. And he was using Final Cut Pro X, which is one of these things that a lot of editors who have been using Final Cut Pro for years and years said, like, oh, I don't know, it's really different. And I was watching him edit, and I realized, gosh, you know, I'm pretty well versed in Final Cut Pro 7. But when I look at Final Cut Pro X, I feel really clueless. Final Cut Pro X could be one of the courses that I decide to take via Lynda. They've got a great course called Final Cut Pro X Essential Training. It helps me, the description is really kind of cool. Build and refine your story with the redesigned editing toolset in Final Cut Pro X. So right away, you know that they know that I'm probably coming from a place where I'm like, even if I know what I'm doing, I'm a little unfamiliar, because this product has been greatly, greatly changed, and now I feel a little bit out of my element. Final Cut Pro X is a newer product. You know that that's going to get more of the support on the Apple side, and as somebody who works in media, I really need to know this, but I feel a little clueless, and you know, I just don't know how to teach myself this stuff. I kind of have to be shown. So it's a perfect course for me. You can get immediate access to the entire library over at Lynda. All you have to do is say, okay, well, you kind of just choose your course, and you can see what all of the different areas of study that this course includes. So yeah, if you want to, you're just kind of going to focus on tools. That's, you know, 6 minute and 23 second type of a thing. Or maybe you've kind of mastered some of this, and you need to skip around based on what you need to know. Wonderful, wonderful course tools. Now, of course, it's not just about video editing. Social media, business skills, programming, certain kinds of software like Photoshop or PowerPoint, or WordPress, I mean, anything you can think about really, Linda covers. You can improve your skills, you can learn new software, you can keep up with technology. Over 2,000 courses, by the way. I mean, this isn't 2 or 3. They've really got a huge database, and new courses are added daily. Besides anything in video editing, with a lynda.com subscription, you can receive unlimited access to a vast library of high quality, current, and engaging video tutorials across all sorts of subjects, like social media. So for example, Twitter for business. Lots of people who watch the Social Hour are interested in that. Facebook for bands, Flickr essentials, LinkedIn basics, all that good stuff. Plus software, business skills. You want to create an awesome resume, hobbies like photography or audio recording that you might not know a lot about, or even programming, web development, CSS, Raspberry Pi. The possibilities are endless. And if you're just like, you know, I don't need a specific skill, but I'm looking for inspiration. I'm looking for new ideas. I want to learn some stuff. I want to feel like I'm growing. Lynda.com also offers a series called Creative Inspirations that are documentaries. They follow companies and creative individuals around, people who are leaders in their field or inventors, pioneers, and you can get inspired and be like, wow, you know, that woman is really, really killing it in her market. It's going to inspire me to do the same. Whether you have 15 minutes or 15 hours, you can learn at your own pace on your own schedule with lynda.com. $25 a month for access to Lynda's entire course library. Like I said, over 2,000 courses there. $37.50 a month, you can subscribe to the premium plan, which includes exercise files that let you follow along with the instructor's project using all the same assets. Try lynda.com right now, free 7-day trial, lynda.com/social hour. Access that entire library. That's lynda.com/social hour. And thanks to Lynda for sponsoring our show. All right, Ayaz, how do you feel about self-portraits online, often commonly known as the selfie?
I think that's actually one of the main reasons why I look for the megapixel count on front-facing cameras. Anytime I see that on a phone, I'm like, the back's great. It's got 41 megapixels. What about the front? Because a lot of photos are like this of mine. Mm-hmm. So I guess I'm guilty of the selfie, and I guess I enjoy a good selfie.
You know, it's funny. I've actually, she will remain nameless. I guess now you know it's a she. I have a friend say that recently she had another mutual friend of ours give her a little bit of a selfie intervention.
Oh, too many selfies, huh?
Too many selfies. I never would have done that because that's a conversation I just don't want to have with anybody. But as she was telling me, I was thinking in my mind, good, you were taking too many photos of yourself. It's good that you had a selfie intervention.
That sounds like a terrible, so it's a selfie
It wasn't
intervention.
me.
You sure it wasn't you?
I try to not take that many pictures of myself unless I think that they're like, I don't know, artsy or something. I'm not doing this regularly.
Right,
I'm not.
You gotta do it naturally like this,
Yeah.
so that nobody
On
knows
Snapchat,
it's
totally
your
am.
own arm. You gotta make sure that it can't tell
Right.
it's you.
Yeah, like, no, that person
Yeah.
was just really close to
It's
me.
like, yeah, just so happens to be that way.
Yeah. I take a lot of selfies on Snapchat, but that's different. That's
Absolutely
a whole different thing. You don't even have to call it a selfie on Snapchat. Well, anyway, there's a great article. This is actually Amber. Amber, of course, who's like laid up in bed, not feeling well at all, still is like, you have to talk about this, you have to talk about this, because she's awesome. Has a great article over at shinyshiny.tv that Paul McCartney says, hey man, I invented the selfie. He also says that he invented the photobomb, which is a little bit of a, you know, it's a little bit of a skit because he was on the Jimmy Fallon show. But yeah, it's, if you scroll down a little bit, Brian, you can see that there's a picture of Paul McCartney definitely taking a self-portrait in a mirror with an old camera back when he was just a wee lad. And he says, yeah, I want you to show me something from, you know, some other cool artist before then. I mean, obviously there are other photos that people have taken of themselves in mirrors.
Yeah, Paul McCartney seems to have a really good sense of humor with this stuff. And I've seen this photo for a long time, the first photobomb he's giving himself credit for, as George Harrison is being, it looks like about to be kissed by 2 girls. McCartney in the back, pumping his fist in anger. I've seen that a bunch of times. Actually pops up on Reddit a lot. They're like, Paul McCartney, the original photobomber. Although I'm pretty sure, I have no idea about this picture because I didn't actually listen to the audio of this this part of the Fallon show.
Yeah, now they're just talking about didgeridoos, I think. But yeah, no, it's you know, Paul McCartney loves to take credit for a lot of things. I'm a Beatles fan,
Me
so
too.
you know, I'm just gonna leave it right there. But but no, it's kind of fun. It's kind of fun to remind ourselves that things like selfies and photobombs have existed for a long time. Now they just have terms.
Yeah, the thing is, when it came to selfies then, you had to figure out how many of them you're going to take. You have film, and you're not going to take like 40 in a row because you'll be out of film. Now, because it's digital, now these kids these days take 50 of these silly duck face things.
Right.
Versus the one. So I think selfie control is what people need.
All right, let's move on to one of our social tips. This is actually our social tip of the week. This is called Swarm Local. It's an app that lets you organize anonymously. Brian, do you want to play? We don't have to play the whole thing, but at least the beginning.
It's time. I've got to get out of here. Nothing's there. It's just habit. Put the phone away, Dash. It's time to do something. Feel something. Remember last year? The Flyers? Flyers, Dash? Really? What was I doing? What am I doing? I feel restless. I want to feel reckless. Wonder how many other people feel the same way tonight. There's only one way to find out.
Okay, so this is, if you're like, wait, I don't understand what's going on. Is it a cartoon? This is something that the app over at Swarm Local has put together to kind of give you a sense of what the app is capable of. So, for example, you can think of something like a flash mob, right? Like everyone get together on this particular subway line at 6 p.m. and we're all going to do something. Well, how do you make sure everybody knows? Do you write a huge long email to a bunch of people? Do you put up flyers? Yeah, that increasingly seems harder and harder to do. So this is something where you can basically create an organized sort of a, here's what we're all gonna do. You know, I've got this idea for a swarm, right? That's the term that they use. And then you can sort of blast it out to people in your contact list. Maybe you've got a big contact list of people who are really interested in, I don't know, the sky's the limit, really. I mean, in San Francisco, there's a thing called critical mass where a bunch of bicyclists get together and they disrupt traffic, and it's kind of, you know, bicycle power type thing. And that would be something that I could see would be really, really helpful for something like Swarm Local. This is for Android and iOS, by the way. Ayaz, what do you think?
Okay, well, one, the video that's still playing is a bit strange. It almost reminds me of like a Fight Club's Takeoff, because it's like fight night.
It's very creative, but I don't know if it's actually
that doesn't seem to be the
describing the purpose of the app.
It looks
that well.
like it looks like in the video that you could maybe talk to people that weren't just in your contact list. I'm not positive about that. It seems like from the article I was reading, it looks like it's about your contact list, and it's basically sending out these blasts to people. But you can also do this anonymously, which makes it seem like if you were on Swarm Local and I was saying, hey, everybody in Petaluma that's on Kentucky Street, let's all walk backwards.
Right.
And they have the app, they would see the same message.
Yeah.
So you can communicate in a way.
But that's the kicker, is that they have to have the app, right? So if a bunch of people within a mile of you have the app installed, I don't know, maybe some cool things could happen. But, you know, that's that's an issue that lots of apps have, is that there's not enough pickup, and then you end up feeling kind of lonely in the app.
Yeah, this is like a South by Southwest kind of test. If this goes out there, that kind of event, you got a bunch of people who have the app at the same time, what kind of weird stuff could happen? But it does require a lot of people to have the app for it to be impactful. Otherwise, you just have, hey, I sent out this blast to everybody in this town, and there's like 3 people who are just very far away who won't be doing the same thing. It's an interesting idea. It's definitely better than sending out a group message or group email or trying to. The example of having flyers up everywhere. Maybe it'll become like it'll pivot into yard sales. You know, like here's a blast, yard sales right here.
Maybe. That would be awesome, actually.
Yeah, yard swarm.
Estate sale, not too far from me. I'll check that out.
I think in case if this doesn't work for flash mobs, the way to go, yard sales.
All right, let's move on to one of our 2 spotlights of the week. The first one is called Patreon. This is, I hadn't heard of it before, and in fact, I sort of found it by accident because I was reading some sort of a blog post about somebody who was talking about putting together a podcast and raising money. And I came across Patreon, which actually is a neat idea, particularly for people who are artists. And I'm not just talking about people who, paint pictures, but, somebody who's a musician, or they create videos, or they are a painter. somebody who's who has something very creative to make and is interested in amassing support from patrons of the arts. It's created to basically enable somebody like me who might be a fan of someone else to support and engage with artists and creators that we love. So it empowers people to make art, and it also it's very Kickstarter-y in a way, but it's a lot more niche because it's art focused. People like me to say, okay, well, I really love this artist so much. I'm really I'm prepared to support him or her, and by donating $50 or that sort of thing, I can be ensured that they will make something that they've said ahead of time that they will make. So if somebody's like, I'm going to create a crazy graffiti mural, I just need some money, and I say, you know what, I love your graffiti murals, I really want to see another one of those, I now have a hand in it. And there are, of course, little special things that you get. If again, very much like Kickstarter, if I was to donate to a particular artist's page or campaign, then I might get something extra. Some sort of like a T-shirt or a sticker or some sort of a thank you, or maybe my name is drawn in the clouds. But I like this idea, particularly because I think art can be, even maybe more than other things, a little bit less tangible. Mm-hmm. And there's always sort of an argument of like, well, what is art exactly? And a lot of people really appreciate this kind of stuff, but someone like me, I'm not probably going to invest a lot of my time and energy into buying a lot of supplies and canvases and artist tools that I don't already have, because I'm not guaranteed to get anything out of it. I think it's really hard to sort of leverage your artistic ability in a world where a lot of people are like, well, you and everybody else is a painter or a photographer.
The cool thing to me about this is it's not necessarily project-based. It's not like, okay, Kickstarter and Indiegogo, you have to have, I'm going to be doing this thing. I'm building a movie, or I'm going to build a tangible product. I'm building something. This is about, okay, I'm an artist, I do these kinds of things. You can have, let's say on Monday you sing a song, that on Tuesday you're dancing, on Thursday you're painting, whatever it is, but you're like, I really like this artist, whatever they're doing. I'm actually really interested in that, and I want them to be able to do that. It's kind of like a really easy kind of tip jar. Instead of having to go to like PayPal or like trying to set up those buttons, if you have this one location where you can discover more artists and find more projects, not just projects, but find more interesting people, because you're like, wait a second, this guy or girl has this great raw talent. I want to do what I can to make sure that they actually get more money so they can bother to continue doing what they're doing. That's the kind of thing Patreon, I think, is good at. Otherwise, you'd be stuck with, wait, do I have to come up with a new project now? New project now? New project now? It's like, no, we'll just do this.
Right. It's I believe in you, the artist, and I love that. I think that's really cool. And yeah, we showed a little clip from one of the artists who has his cat in his sort of welcome video.
Carbot Animations is creating cartoon parodies. Like, that's one of them. Like, that's cool. Like, I would like to see more parodies. So you just give $1, become a patron. It's another way to do crowdfunding, and it's just a kind of another variant on it, but it's helping artists grow.
Exactly. Yeah, and the crowdfunding space is starting to get pretty crowded. No pun intended, sort of. But this is definitely one to watch, particularly just because, hey, we're a podcasting network, even though we don't really ever call ourselves that, but it's definitely what we are. And there might be a lot of you who think that this could be a good venue for you to raise money for future projects.
Yeah, I was looking at one of the artists that says, I've been writing a lot lately. If you're a fan of my music, you can't get enough of it. This is a way to hear my songs as they're being created. So there's just you get a lot more than just a finished product too. You get a lot of making of things too.
Yeah, and it seems like a lot of people that are using Patreon are certainly the new media folks. The people who are the YouTubers, or they're creating some music and trying to share it socially, or again podcasting or that sort of thing. So that's our first spotlight of the week. Second spotlight is something called FriendFlop, which is a Chrome extension that it attempts to scramble the names of people who would be posting, let's say, a Twitter update or an update on Facebook, scrambles them with the actual messages. So the examples that they give is, something like Bill Gates talking about watching Keeping Up with the Kardashians. Probably not something that would happen, but it looks about right. Dalai Lama saying, Vegas, you ready? And then, a link to an Instagram. And then you've got Kim Kardashian saying something that seems a lot more like something that the Dalai Lama would say. And then, you've got your retweets and your favorites that are all sort of jumbled in there. And so I said, okay, well, I don't really understand what's going on here, so I'm just going to go ahead and download it or, install it. It's the Chrome extension, just for Chrome. What's funny is that, of course, then I went to my Twitter app, which is actually Tweetbot, which doesn't actually work like Twitter. And I was like, hey, it doesn't quite look like anything. But then I went to actual Twitter because I realized, I'm going through Tweetbot and it's a third-party app, so that's why it's not working out. Then I started to read web Twitter, and I realized that, and what's weird about, here's the whole thing, is that it's sort of a little bit of a social commentary that if you start mixing up who sends what message, it's sort of weird, but it still sort of works.
It makes you pay more attention. In your feed there, you have Steve Martin saying support vampires, right?
Right.
Now, the weird thing is that could be something Steve Martin would have.
Exactly.
And so now you're going to be paying more attention to what's actually going on in your feed. Because sometimes you'll see, if you see the icon on the left, maybe you subscribe to or you follow a publication. You might just ignore their stuff, but I'm noticing, like, on mine, like, Scott Johnson is talking about The Verge. It's like, no, he's not. That's because I was following The Verge and they swapped it out. But
yeah.
It's this kind of thing. Now I'm reading a little differently because, oh boy, you've got some weird ones here.
I've got some weird. So my friend Ryan, he works at TechCrunch. Ryan Lawler. Okay, he's not the kind of person who would ever tweet about beauty. He writes, want a Brazilian blowout without chemicals? Go inside San Francisco's full-service organic beauty salon. It's like, there's no way he wrote that. So now I'm kind of like, who did write that? It could probably, maybe would be my friend Melody, who runs a style company. But it's like, it almost makes things stand out a little bit more because you're attaching the wrong names to what people are saying. I can't have this on for very long or I'd go crazy. I guess this would also be a pretty good prank if you could get access to somebody else's Chrome browser, because then they'd just be like, because it doesn't seem weird enough to be like, whoa, I've been hacked or anything. It's just like, Tony said a weird thing just now.
On the plus side, if you do hit reply, it actually does do the @reply to the original person. I just did that right now to see what's going on here. So the @reply does go to, if you want to like,
yeah, it's basically just obfuscating the original
for
poster.
Now, I would hope, and I don't know if this is true yet because I haven't gotten to play with it enough, that some of them aren't even changed. So we have like maybe 80% have switched, but they're still true ones by certain people.
Right.
To be like, wait, he didn't really say that, or she didn't really say that. What happened there? But there's a great, it could be that's a really good prank.
Oh, this is so good.
I like it.
I love it. This is it's just weird enough to be awesome. So that's called what's it called again? FriendFlop. Sorry, FriendFlop.
I got lost in tweets.
Chrome extension. It's free. I mean, it's just
like
it's just
Mount Washington College and my thing says some thoughts about a Furby coming soon. Please retweet. It's not.
It's like that's definitely not who it was. But then you sort of go like, but who did post that?
Yeah. Then you hit reply and then you find out it was my friend Leslie. It's like, aha. That makes. I like this little game though.
Yeah.
How well do you know your friends?
Right. It's a little bit of that, and it works for Twitter and Facebook as well. So just make sure that if you try FriendFlop that you remember to toggle it off before you start accusing people of going crazy, because they will seem like they're a little bit odd. Speaking of Twitter, our little hashtag of the week, this is something that, how ironic hashtags and funny things like add a word to a movie title and make it sound different. They sort of enjoy their little peaks every so often. Today's hashtag, certainly, I wouldn't even call it hashtag of the week, definitely hashtag of the day, because we probably will be over it by tomorrow, is something called Dark BuzzFeed. So hashtag Dark BuzzFeed. The reason that Dark BuzzFeed is funny, and I should preface this by saying some of the Dark BuzzFeed jokes are very dark indeed. So it may not be for everybody, but BuzzFeed, of course, BuzzFeed.com is sort of famous for their headlines like 13 cute animals that will make you laugh today, or the 10 reasons why your job sucks, or 25 people that are going to make it in the entertainment industry. You know, it's like
Lots
these,
of lists,
lots
of link
lists.
baits, and it gets people to click.
Right, but it's, you know, it sort of starts to become a butt of a joke because it's like, really, BuzzFeed? Mashable is also accused of doing this quite often, as is Business Insider. So dark BuzzFeed is a little bit more of a, well, it's the darker side of what a BuzzFeed article might be. So, for example, let's go ahead and fire up dark BuzzFeed. I'll just go ahead and add it in tweets with dark BuzzFeed here. And then I'll start watching the hashtag. The top one is really awful.
I've got one that's not terribly awful.
Okay, let's hear it.
101 things that can kill you at any moment, and you won't even see them coming. 101 cats who have better health insurance than you. Oh, boy.
One crazed lunatic who knows where you live and will never, ever give up. That's a dark BuzzFeed article. Headline. This duck and this Great Dane are best friends, as if they won't eventually die alone and frightened like all of us.
9 dresses your dad liked to wear. Yeah, a lot
25 things welfare recipients spent your tax dollars on that you wish you could afford.
And
you get the picture.
yeah, there's a lot of things we can't say here.
13 ways to barf at a party and not be noticed.
That sounds like a real one, though. You sure that's a dark one?
I think if you need 13, that's a pretty dark place that you're in.
That's right. BuzzFeed would have stopped at 9. You're right. You're definitely right about that.
37 childhood friends that have forgotten your face. That's kind of dark. 9 pandas who just won't make it. The list goes on and on. Ayaz and I had a good time for about 5 minutes with this earlier. Just thought I'd pass along today's hashtag trend. Dark BuzzFeed. All right, let's take a moment to thank Shutterstock. They're our second sponsor of this episode of The Social Hour. We love Shutterstock.com because it's where you can find a perfect image or video for your next creative project. We try to be as creative as possible. We're all creative people, right? Talk about creative stuff. But what if you're like, you know, I don't know, I really want to put together like this cool video, right? That's descriptive of what I do for a living, or you know, I want to have like some stock footage of a sunset or a beautiful puppy that just ran into my mouth and then out of my neck. You know, why not?
Oh,
that's
I
where
thought there was a BuzzFeed thing going on again.
Yeah, no.
The 12 puppies that ran into my neck.
Shutterstock is great for this sort of thing. Whether you want to put together something for a website or an advertisement or a video or really any kind of creative project, Shutterstock has, this is all footage that as a Shutterstock member is yours to use. I mean, this stuff is beautiful. They have over 1 million very high quality stock video clips. They have clips in a variety of digital formats. Most are in HD. Most of the contributors to Shutterstock are professional filmmakers, people that you're really sort of looking up to because they're extremely talented. And Shutterstock's adding over 12,000 video clips each week. Think about that for a second. 12,000 video clips per week? You would always have a huge treasure trove of stuff. You'd never even get through all of it. And Shutterstock has sophisticated tools for someone who's like, well, I don't need 12,000 video clips. I just need the one right video clip. That's where very sophisticated search tools come in handy, because you can search for pretty much anything based on a keyword or maybe even color palette or some sort of an emotion. Brian's looking at motorcycle stuff because Brian likes motorcycle stuff. I mean, that was a really awesome slow-mo kind of up close video of a motorcycle burning rubber before it rides off into the forest. I mean, this is like, are you really going to go out and shoot all of that yourself? Maybe you are, but I bet you aren't. And that's why Shutterstock is such a great service to have, because then all of these videos can be part of your project and really, really tell your story. If you want to try out Shutterstock today, please do so, because you can have a free account just to check it out. You don't need a credit card. Just start up an account and start using Shutterstock to help imagine what your next project could be, and then save some video selections to a clip box. You know, maybe you're working with a few people. Maybe you guys are putting together some sort of like, I don't know, some like very cool outdoorsy off-roading thing, and some of these motorcycle clips could just be perfect. But I'm thinking like, well, does Ayaz really like this, or am I kind of going off on a tangent here? We can have a shared clip box, and then he can look at it later and say, yeah, clips 1 and 3 are awesome, but I don't know about the other ones. So it's a great collaborative tool as well. When you decide to purchase a Shutterstock account, use the offer code SocialHour1013. Corresponds to the month and the year. So SocialHour1013. And new accounts will receive 25% off any package. That's Shutterstock.com. And for 25% off new accounts, use the offer code SocialHour1013. And we thank Shutterstock for their sponsorship of the Social Hour. Okay, we got a few emails about the idea that, well, it's not an idea, it's actually a reality, that Facebook has decided that they want teenagers to be more publicly heard on the social network. Specifically, if you're between the age of 13 and 17, up until this week, you could not post public posts. It would have to be posts that were shared with friends and or friends of friends. If you have a lot of friends on Facebook, you could it's almost as if you're posting publicly. But the idea was like, well, if some weird, creepy person was to find your profile, they're not going to see everything that you've posted about because it wasn't public, unless they were a friend of your friend. Facebook says, well, teens want to be heard these days. We want to provide a forum to be able to publicly post, almost like a blog post or that sort of thing, or be able to, upload photos, and then them not be restricted. And there are a lot of people, understandably, particularly parents. I know a lot of you are parents who are interested in the way that your children are growing up with social media, who say, this is just not, why is this necessary? Why can't we be certain that at least Facebook posts are restricted to friends for children, people under the age of 18? What do you think, Ayaz? I mean, I know your son is a lot younger than this age group, but is this something that you sort of worry about as far as the teenage group?
Posting publicly, it just seems like if Facebook doesn't offer the tool, they can just go somewhere else to do public posts, right?
Yeah.
There's nothing stopping you from doing a Twitter account. There's nothing stopping you from lying about your age. That's another thing. It's, oh wow, I know Facebook claims that they do crack down and remove accounts that they find are under a certain age and they're not supposed to be on Facebook. But if you can just start a blog somewhere else and write public things, I don't know if Facebook's offering anything that other companies don't. So if they don't have this feature, they just seem strange for not having the option to post publicly. But Facebook's supposed to be a social network, supposed to be about your friends and everything like that. So why should you give them the option? But it's as simple as, if Facebook doesn't have this option, they're just behind.
I guess so. I can definitely see where Facebook says this is just, it helps with the whole, if there's a public post, then you might get more likes. Mm-hmm. So it kind of works both ways, right? It increases the engagement level, and then it also may compel people to post more often because they feel like they're getting more feedback. And of course, teenagers, not speaking for all teenagers, but in general, it's a little bit of an age group where positive reinforcement, getting a lot of likes on something would be something that would be useful, helpful. Still works for me. And I'm really a long way from being a teenager. I was 17 a long time ago. But at the same time, it almost seems like it's a 180 from actual teen behavior. We've
about
talked
publicly posting, you mean?
About publicly posting and even just being on Facebook in general. Not that I don't think that teenagers are using Facebook, because I know they are, but we see studies all the time that say, it's not the cool place to be because that's where people of all age groups are. So yeah, you've got people, teenagers who are like, I like Instagram better. And all those accounts are locked down. Not all of them, but so many accounts are locked down, and it's like, it's really not a place to peek into because you want to be yourself and talk about stuff that your parents aren't going to see.
There's that part, but there's also that thing that you're a teenager, and I'll go drawing from my own experience, like, nobody listens to me. I want the world to know that I'm thinking that being a comic book artist is the best way to go to have a living. Now, obviously, that worked for like Len Peralta and working for Scott Johnson, working in comics, an actual thing. But like, there's certain times where kids just want to tell everybody everything.
Yeah.
So I would think the public nature it's not the usual part, because you want to keep secrets within groups and things. You don't necessarily want to have your secrets public either. That would be one of the reasons why using Facebook to communicate with a small group of friends seems like usually a mistake to me. Because if you're doing it on a wall, that's trouble unless you're using private messages or anything like that. So if you're going to bother with this. At least Facebook does have a little pop-up to tell you if you're going to bother to switch it to public, because you might not even realize you're putting things publicly. I think a lot of people that use Facebook that are over their teenage or past their teenage years would like to see that pop-up saying, by the way, this is going to be public. Do you want it to be public? Because you might not want that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I can definitely see where this is a cause for concern, certainly with privacy advocates and child advocates, but I just don't know how much this is going to alter anybody's behavior. It'll be interesting to see. If there's an incident that arises because something was public, that a 15-year-old posted and it, one of these, there has to be an incident that people can point to and say, this is a bad idea, Facebook, and then who knows, the company has reversed policies before. Got an email from a wonderful gentleman whose name I didn't write down, who works for a healthcare pharmaceutical advertising agency, and he says, I remember that he had a man's name. I'm not sure how much you all know about the FDA and their social media guidance, but there's pretty much no guideline given by the FDA, Food and Drug Administration, as to how pharmaceutical companies should act on social media. So it's pretty much a guessing game of testing the waters and tiptoeing around. When Facebook transitioned to their timeline wall, pharma companies flipped out because there was no option to disable comments on posts. I recently came across this product page for Novartis. Do you know anything at all about this? All right, so I went ahead and went to the page, and it looks as if this is it's a page that Novartis put together, but it's kind of actually strange. I mean, not even looking at any of the comments, of which there really aren't any, but this is like a Facebook page that almost looks like some sort of a magazine page ad, where legally on the magazine page, yeah, you have to talk about side effects, complications. There's a lot of fine print. Anybody who sees a commercial, we sort of chuckle at they talk about all the health benefits of this drug, and then, really quickly in a lowered voice, they talk about all the things that could happen. Side effects include nausea, vomiting, and death.
The worst thing is that they say now they have to say it slower, and so you do hear it's like, it does cause vomiting and death.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this is, there you go.
Vomiting and diarrhea.
I swear, everything that causes abdominal pain. My ailment could be one of so many things. But I've never run into a page like this before. And if I have, I probably clicked away from it really quickly because I knew that it was an ad. But I wonder how long stuff like this will fly. Because I know that the FDA has obviously a real vested interest in making sure that if something has a warning label, that it's displayed in the right way. Like you said, TV commercials now, you have to list the side effects more slowly. In a magazine, it has to be prominently displayed. It can't be obfuscated by a logo, or the print can't be too small. So how do the rules apply to something like a social media presence? I'm not sure.
So I think for the most part, that kind of page we just saw there, it looks more like a magazine ad, as you're saying. So if it's going to be regulated by anything, probably like a truth in advertising kind of deal. There shouldn't be a bunch of bizarre testimonials from fake accounts screaming, hey, this product worked for me and there are no side effects and it's fantastic. I would think that maybe in the most public, all the public information that's there, they would have all these disclaimers, maybe a link to something on the bottom of each of these images, something that says, hey, if you want to know more about what we're doing, they would disclose as much as they possibly could every single turn, because this is not a small business. This is the pharmacology business, and that's usually quite expensive to run. So if you're going to do pharmaceuticals, I'm imagining it's just going to be like print ads. You have to make sure that these things are available, but that means your cover photo needs to have your disclaimer or something, because the only thing that's constantly present is
sometimes
one of those.
if you're going to bury something in the About Me page on a Facebook profile or a Facebook page, that's not necessarily sufficient. So I don't know. I've never really run into anything like this before. If anybody else has, let us know. But yeah, it's a brave new world. Let's see what the FDA has to say about it. And then that's not even getting into the whole idea of spoofing some sort of a pharmaceuticals page to make it look like it was real. I mean, that's a whole nother thing. When you get into prescription drugs, it's all very complicated. Amber sent along a tweet that FindInEmo85 on Twitter had sent to us. Now, I'm just passing this along because I want to make Amber happy, and I appreciate the fact that FindInEmo85 was thinking of us. But I was already aware that Little Bub has a Vine account, but maybe you weren't.
I was not aware of such a thing.
So
you can hear my excitement level, too.
Now you know.
Oh, yeah.
This is Bub after she eats.
Right. And it loops forever.
Yeah, because it's Vine.
I can
and
watch this
that's
forever.
sort of the beauty of Vine, yeah. And then,
how long did you watch this, Vine?
Oh, well, I
Tell
don't know.
the truth.
Probably at least 10 times in a row.
10 times in a row? So
Yeah.
that's only a minute. That's
Yeah.
the thing about Vine. At least this is assuming it's the max of 6 seconds. But yeah, that's that. I didn't know Lil Bub had a Vine account. Now we know.
Yep, Bubba's Vine account. If you're interested, is it Lil Bub or Lil Bub? I don't know. I follow her on Vine. Well, I could do this later. But thank you, FindInEmo85. I mean, Captain Obvious, as far as I'm concerned. But many of you who are also Bub fans may not have been aware. This is also Amber's way of saying, I know Sarah wants to talk about cats just once on the show. So thank you, my co-host. I hope you're feeling better. Finally, before we get to, we're getting close to our Rat or Fad, but first, the social marketing spotlight of the week, which never sounds like it's going to be that cool. You're like, social marketing spotlight, that sounds really boring. It actually is cool, and this is actually Vine related as well. Tide has made a Vine that plays on the theme of the Stephen King book made sequel that opens in theaters tomorrow, Carrie. And the Tide Vine is it's a version of as if Tide had won Homecoming Queen. And then,
Oh my gosh.
I guess this is quite a spoiler.
Well, okay, so
if you're not familiar with the 1970s version of the story.
I think it's a Sissy Spacek. That's the
Sissy Spacek was
No.
in the movie, the original movie, yes.
Yeah, I've watched that. Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, that's really incredibly dark.
It's incredibly
The more you know
dark.
about the movie Carrie or the book Carrie, that is disturbing. Like, I'm
Right?
watching this, it's like the 4th time where I'm realizing how disturbing that is, because the stain hits the Tide bottle, and that means the stain is going to be done. Which
Right.
works if that worked for me. Like, maybe I'll use Tide now.
Yeah.
Because there it goes again.
I get exactly what they're going for there. But it
Wow.
is, I mean, that's some graphic stuff.
And it's a good time to carry. Although I don't know if you'd want to use fire for stains, but that's a whole other problem.
Right. Right.
Wow.
Yeah.
But does that mean Tide was pushed around as a kid and not had some like real mom issues and stuff?
Tide, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Tide did not have a great
It's
childhood.
it's getting a little darker. You can see why Tide is brand new all the time.
This is one of these things, though, where it's like, I go, I don't know if I'm going to buy Tide because of this, but kudos to you. Or maybe I am, and that's the whole point of advertising, is that I don't realize that now I like Tide more.
I had to see it a couple times to get it, and that's the thing. Like the first time I saw it, like we just saw it now, and I was like, oh wait, now I get what's going on.
Yeah.
And it actually gets a little bit better, then you don't have to watch it anymore. Like,
Right.
But you've watched the Tide thing
Yeah.
do this 3 times already.
Right.
And that's a whole ad.
I think that it's almost like just the fact that we're like, kudos to you, Tide. Somehow a little part of our brain now remembers that you're cool in some way.
Or you'll set fire to the gymnasium.
Hey, and you're cool if, or that, we can't cross you.
Yeah, don't
Don't pour
if you're
pig's blood on
staying-
Tides, or you will be...
Spoiler. It's only been like 20-something years, 30
Yeah,
years now.
yeah, come on. Yeah, it's if you don't know the story, I don't know what to tell you. But so Tide, cooler than ever. Reminder that we love hearing from all of you. Our email address is working again, so please do send in your emails. There were some that were tragically lost in the great email whatever of 2013, but our email's working again. thesocialhour@twit.tv is where you can write us with questions or comments or articles that you'd like us to look at or vines that you think are cool, but that's not the only place that we're looking. Obviously, you can always tweet at Sarah Lane and Amber Mack on Twitter. You can tag posts with Social Hour or The Social Hour. We're kind of monitoring both. If you want us to look at tweets, you can leave us a voicemail if you'd like us to hear your sunshiny voice. You'd like us hear you sing a song, or I don't know, just talk to us. 2626 social is our number. If you just type in 2626 SOCIAL, that's our Google Voice mailbox. You can leave us a message there, or you can record a video, upload it somewhere, send us the link, and we'd love to add your video to a future show. All right, before we get to Rad or Fad, let's take a moment to thank SAP. They're our third sponsor of this episode of the Social Hour. Social media solutions from SAP helps companies use social media to improve customer service and support. Sounds good, right? All companies want that. You want to have the best customer service and support experience for your customers ever, because we all know, everybody can think of the company. Just think of one right now that you're like, worst customer service experience ever. I've got one in my mind. Ayaz has one. You remember stuff like that. You don't want to be that company if you're working for a large enterprise. You want to be the company who does exactly the opposite. You want to be the company who is paying attention to the people who are complaining about your brand. They might have had a bad experience. They don't like your new product. You want to know about that. It might be on Twitter or Facebook. That's a little bit more obvious, but it might be on some, I don't know, blog post that not that many people are reading, but you still want to reach that person, or a review site that maybe you're just not monitoring. And if you've got a big brand, all of a sudden, so many people are talking about your product, and you have to keep on top of it. If you work in social media, a large enterprise, it's just not that easy. So you've got the listening component. That is how you take in all of the things that folks are talking about your brand, about your product online. Helps you identify customers who might be ready to buy your product based on indicators, keywords and emotions and that sort of thing. SAP is really good at being able to glean that sort of particular information from what people are saying across a variety of social networks, and uses natural language processing to be able to know the differences in what people are saying, that on paper the sentence might seem like, oh, that person saying that they like the product. But in fact, they might have been saying the product is not that good rather than the product is good. This is sort of thing that is sometimes can be difficult to kind of set to an algorithm, but SAP and Social Media Solutions does a really, really good job with that. And then, of course, you want to engage. You want to engage with your customers. You want to improve your customer service and support. You want to reach out to the customers who are having a bad experience. You want to make their day better. You want to help somebody buy your product. Maybe they're on the fence. You want to drive sales this way, of course. Quickly solve customer problems so they end up happy at the end of the day. And you just want to be a rapid responder to customer feedback. Social Media Solutions from SAP gives you more than marketing by improving the customer service and support experience. So go to sap.com/twit. Take a guided tour right now, or in a few minutes when the show's over, and see for yourself how Social Media Solutions from SAP works and will work for your company as well. Thanks to SAP. You guys are great. We love you. All right, let's move on to this week's Rad or Fad. It's called the iKettle, and it is an app, Ayaz, that will help you control your kettle remotely.
The constant problem I have is the fact that when I want to make tea, I have to go to the kettle, fill it up with water, and then I have to push the button. And that is the most maddening part of any day of my life. It is something I truly hate.
Okay, so at least on the surface, you're saying, I don't know if this is a problem I'm having that needs to be solved.
No, it doesn't seem that difficult.
Okay, so I actually have a kettle. It's an electric kettle that I use every morning to heat up my water that I then put into my coffee maker, because my coffee maker doesn't heat up my water enough.
All right.
And everybody knows that water should be a certain temperature for your coffee to taste good. But I lay in bed thinking, I gotta get up and get this whole thing started, because it takes a few minutes for the water to get hot enough. If I could just be in bed and then use my iKettle remote app to start the kettle, because it's using the same Wi-Fi network, so it's not like Bluetooth. I mean, you can, as long as you're on the same Wi-Fi network, you don't have to be right next to your kettle. Get everything started, almost like a timed coffee maker would do on its own. Then, I don't know, you're laughing.
In the demo video, the guy's coming home. He's coming home. He just walked through the front door, and now he's set the kettle to go In the coolthings.com article, they even have a still of the iDevice, and it says, "Good morning, Sarah. I think that's why you like it so much." By the way, it's like, "Would you like me to pop the kettle on?" Hit OK or cancel. I don't think this is a problem that needs to be solved by a particular kettle, because you gotta still fill it up with water. It's not like you have, like, how else does it get filled with water? You do it, right? Is there like another robot that shows up? And
No,
like, I'll pour it
the
in
water,
for you?
yeah, the water is not going to magically appear.
Yeah,
I also
so-
love in the explainer video where it's like 3 dudes watching the game, and the guy's like, "Guys want more tea?"
Well,
And
yeah,
they're like, more
that's the
tea.
most accurate part of the whole video. And the other thing,
More tea. All right, let me
it's
get the
tea.
tea going
yeah,
for
for
you.
tea time, maybe, I don't know. I don't have a lot of football parties anymore, so maybe that's what the youth do with their iDevices, their iKettle. You know what? I could see it being cool for one usage. You know, you just simply do it once. You're like, you know what I can do with my phone? Turn on my kettle. That's it. That's the entirety of that.
This is also not a cheap product because, of course, the kettle and the app are together. This is not just an app that's going to work with any kettle. It's from a company called Firebox. And it's $161.59. That's sort of a weird price. I think it's just because it's converting over from
Pounds,
from British
yeah.
pounds, yeah, because it's a British company. But yeah, that's not. This is to me one of these things where, honestly, if I had it in my house, I would use it, but I probably wouldn't splurge because it's too much money. If it was a gift, I'd be like, what a great gift. But it's not something that I feel like is necessary.
You really would say this is a great gift if somebody handed you this thing?
Yeah. I get to start the water boiling without getting up.
What if they just got you a coffee maker that got the coffee hot enough or the water hot enough? Wouldn't that just solve your problem anyway? So that's a better gift.
Yes.
I
Somebody in chat also
would-
points out, if you're in bed and you want to heat up the water was sitting in your kettle all night.
I would probably.
Because that, so there's the, like, well,
I would shake somebody who got me this thing. It's like, what's wrong with you? You spent $161 for a kettle? Like, what are you thinking? There's like, you could have bought anything else. Like, even an Amazon gift card would have made more sense than a kettle. A kettle. Unless you like I guess, it is a UK product, so maybe since it's tea time every day there's a thing there. But
Right.
maybe I'm just the wrong audience for this.
Yeah, I feel like if you would have been super gung-ho, I would have been more gung-ho about it, but I think you're probably right that it's a very interesting, it's cool. It's like, it's cool to do stuff remotely. But is this something that's really going to be used on a regular basis by enough people?
I'm the dork who put rope lights under his couch so I can have that cool little light effect.
Oh.
Like, that's dorky, and it has a remote. But that's not going to cost me $161.
No.
That's
just like a fun DIY
I'm just a
thing.
cheap man, so I like remote stuff, and but this is the wrong remote thing. So it's totally rad, is what I'm saying. Absolutely rad.
You're calling it, no.
No, I'm just screwing around.
You have to be honest. You're saying that I don't even think you're saying it's a fad. You're saying it just shouldn't even exist.
I think the person who had the guts to make this a product and market it, and then they had market research to come up with the price of 99 British pounds, and then market it internationally that's being sold for $161. That guy's pretty rad.
Yeah.
Because that guy's nuts.
That's just a ballsy move.
Yeah, so that's rad. Product,
Product fad. I agree. I think if I'm being totally honest with myself, if I had this product, I would use it for a week and then I would stop, sort of like an electric toothbrush, which I can't seem to stick with for
need
more
a
than a couple
remote
weeks,
electric
which is the
toothbrush.
exact definition of a fad. Something that's popular and then everybody moves on to something else. So iKettle, sorry, you're cool, but you're probably just a fad. And you're kind of expensive at that. You're nice looking though.
That's pretty.
Yeah, pretty, but not cheap. All right, well, we got 2 fads. That was actually Amber's pick. I would love to know what Amber thinks of the iKettle. Amber, if you're watching, save your comments for next week. I wait with bated breath. But that is it for our social hour. Ayaz Akhtar, thank you so much for being I don't know. I was going to call you my co-host, and then I was trying to think of something like cooler.
no.
And then I was going to say like 007, and that doesn't make sense. And so I just stopped.
Soundboard or something like that, something to sound
Thank
off
you for
of.
being my soundboard
There you
today.
go. Something like that. No problem.
Yeah.
I'm glad to be social every now and then. It's 1 hour a week, and I only do this every couple of years. So
Yeah.
that's my quota.
Awesome. Well, it was fun. Please come back anytime.
Sure. So the kettle thing is still messing with me. That can't be a thing.
It's a thing. It's
not a thing.
real product.
Okay.
It's a real product. iKettle. I don't know. If you like the iKettle and you think we're insane, I want to hear about it.
Maybe this. I'll make a crazy one out of like on know-how or something, like with
Right.
a remote for like $12, and so you
Yeah.
don't have to bother to spend
There you go.
this much money.
Oh, Firebox makes all sorts of other stuff, like an underwater disco light show.
That's cool. $13.
$13. That seems more reasonable. Ayaz is into that.
I'm into this.
Just not some freaky iKettle.
You know what? If the iKettle had light effects, maybe I'm just into lights. I like shiny.
Yeah, okay. Well, it does have some lights. Bathing Bad bath salts. So they're all over all this
That's
cool
a definite
stuff.
fad.
All right. Well, before we get too far into our Firebox, we will wrap this up. Thanks, everybody, for watching and listening to this episode of The Social Hour. Remember, if you want to watch us live, our time slot is Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. But our website is twit.tv/TSH for The Social Hour. See what we did there? TSH, which is where everything lives. You can watch all of our episodes there, get all of the links to everything that we talk about, stories and our tips and our spotlight stuff, Google extension that we talked about, Chrome extension this week. Everything is there. Of course, you can find our show in iTunes or in your favorite podcast app. Until next week, I think Amber will be fine by then, but who knows? Get better soon, Amber. I'm sorry to hear that you're under the weather. I'm Sarah Lane, and we'll see you next time.